What if I told you there is a town on this planet where dying is against the law? Not a metaphor, not clickbait, a real town with real people, with a real rule that no one is allowed to die here? This is Longyearbyen. But before we dive into this strange mystery, if you enjoy learning about the world's most unusual fact and hidden places, make sure to subscribe to the channel. I am Sabha and today we are going to explore a town where dying is actually illegal. And before you say that's impossible, let me show you exactly why this rule exists, why it makes complete scientific sense, and what life is really like inside the world's most unusual town. No, it's not science fiction. It's not a dystopian movie set. It's a small, surprisingly normal Arctic community with one extraordinary catch. Stay with me because by the end of this video, we are going to question everything you thought you knew about life, death, and what happened to a body in permafrost.
Let's start with location because it matters more than you think. Longyearbyen sits at 78 degrees north. To put that into perspective, the North Pole is at 90 degrees north. This town is closer to the North Pole than it is to Oslo, Norway's capital. It's located in the Svalbard archipelago, a group of islands owned by Norway, sitting smack in the middle of the Arctic Ocean, roughly halfway between mainland Norway and the North Pole. And yet, around 2,000 to 2,500 people actually live here. Year-round. They have schools. They have restaurants. They have a supermarket. They even have a small airport. Life here looks surprisingly normal. Until you look a little closer at the conditions. For 4 months of the year, the sun doesn't rise at all. Complete, unbroken darkness, what they call polar night. Temperatures regularly plunge below minus 20 degrees Celsius, that's minus 4 Fahrenheit. And then, like flipping a switch, 4 months of continuous sunlight. The midnight sun, where it's bright at 3 a.m. and people have to tape their windows shut just to sleep. This is not a place for the faint-hearted. And the unique conditions of this land are exactly why people aren't allowed to be buried here, and why that rule has some genuinely terrifying logic behind it. Now, the big question: why can't people be buried here? One word: permafrost. The ground in Longyearbyen is permanently frozen. It doesn't thaw in spring. It doesn't warm in summer. The soil beneath the surface stays frozen solid all year, every year. That's the definition of permafrost, and in Svalbard it goes deep. And here's where science gets unsettling. In 1918, one of the deadliest pandemics in human history swept across the globe, the Spanish flu. It infected an estimated 500 million people worldwide and killed somewhere between 50 and 100 million. In Longyearbyen, several victims of the flu were buried right here in the town cemetery. Now skip forward to 1998. Scientists from around the world came to Svalbard with a very specific mission. They wanted to find the original 1918 flu virus. And they knew exactly where to look, because those bodies, buried 80 years earlier, had not decomposed. Not even slightly. The permafrost had kept them in a state of near-perfect preservation. And inside those bodies, the scientists found traces of the original Spanish flu virus, still partially intact, still potentially viable. Now imagine that. A virus nearly a century old, frozen in a human body, waiting under the Arctic ground. The implications were immediate. If climate change warms the permafrost, and it is warming, what else might thaw? What other pathogens, from other eras, from other buried bodies, might re-emerge? And so, Longyearbyen made the decision: no more burials. The existing cemetery remains, but no new bodies can be interred here. The risk is simply too great. This isn't superstition. This isn't paranoia. This is basic, rational, public health science in one of the most extreme environments on Earth. Okay, so what actually happens if someone living here is seriously ill, or elderly, or reaches the end of their life? The answer is, they leave. If a resident is terminally ill, if there is no realistic chance of recovery, they are transported to mainland Norway. They fly out to hospitals in Tromsø, Oslo, or wherever appropriate care can be provided. And they spend their final days there. It's a strange reality. You could live your entire adult life in Longyearbyen, raise children here, build a business here, watch the northern lights from your doorstep for 30 years, but when the end approaches, you have to say goodbye to your home and travel south. Elderly residents often don't wait for that moment. Many proactively move to mainland Norway as they get older, before they need intensive care. Because here's another uncomfortable truth. There is no elderly care facility in Longyearbyen. The town has a small hospital, the world's northernmost hospital, actually, but it's equipped for emergencies, basic procedures, and primary care. It's not a facility for long-term or palliative care. This is a town built for working-age people. People who can handle the cold, the darkness, the isolation, and the physical demands of Arctic life. The very young come here. The very able-bodied come here. But the very old and the very sick must eventually go. It's not cruel, it's practical. And strangely, most residents accept it as simply part of the deal. But let's not let the death rule overshadow what is genuinely a remarkable place to live. Because despite everything I've just told you, Longyearbyen is a surprisingly vibrant, functioning, modern town. There's a well-regarded school here. Children grow up learning English, Norwegian, and the unique rhythms of Arctic life. There are restaurants, including a notably good Thai restaurant, which is always mentioned by visitors with slightly stunned surprise. There's a supermarket, several pubs, a cinema, a sports center. The town has a fascinating history. It was originally built around coal mining. Longyearbyen is actually named after John Monroe Longyear, an American businessman who established coal mining operations here in the early 1900s. For decades, coal was the lifeblood of this community. Today, the town's economy has diversified dramatically. Tourism is now a major driver. People come from all over the world to see the northern lights, go dog sledding, snowmobile across the frozen landscape, and yes, to visit the famous seed vault that we'll talk about in just a moment. Arctic research is also huge here. Longyearbyen hosts scientists from dozens of countries studying climate change, glaciology, marine biology, and more. The extreme conditions make it an invaluable natural laboratory. And perhaps most surprisingly, there's a strong, warm community here. Everyone knows everyone. Neighbors check on each other. During the darkest months of polar night, the community pulls together in ways that people in big cities rarely experience. Life here has a realness to it, a simplicity, a connection to nature that is almost impossible to replicate anywhere else. And now, the other extraordinary thing that Longyearbyen is famous for. Something that, in a strange way, is the perfect counterpoint to the no burial rule. Because while Longyearbyen refuses to let death take permanent root here, it is also home to the greatest insurance policy in human history, the Svalbard Global Seed Vault. Built into the side of a sandstone mountain on the outskirts of town, this facility stores seed samples from virtually every food crop on Earth. Rice varieties from Asia, maize from the Americas, wheat from the Middle East. Thousands upon thousands of species, over 1.3 million seed samples as of recent counts. The idea is almost biblical in its scope. If civilization were to collapse through war, through disease, through climate catastrophe, this vault would preserve the genetic diversity of our food crops so humanity could rebuild. And why here? Why Longyearbyen? Because of the permafrost, the same frozen ground that prevents bodies from decomposing. That same ground keeps the seeds perfectly, consistently cold. Even if the power to the vault failed completely, the permafrost would maintain the temperature for weeks, even months. There's a beautiful irony in this. A place that cannot accommodate the dead is the safest place on Earth to preserve the seeds of future life. In Longyearbyen, the frozen ground that absorbs the future of life refuses to absorb the end of it. Now, because this town couldn't get any stranger, let's talk about some of the other bizarre rules of Longyearbyen. Because the burial ban is just the beginning. Rule number 1. You must carry a rifle when you leave the town boundaries. Not as a suggestion, not as a tourist prop, as a genuine legal requirement. Because Svalbard has a polar bear population that actually outnumbers its human residents. There are around 3,000 polar bears on these islands. And polar bears are enormous, powerful, and occasionally hungry. If you want to hike, snowmobile, or venture into the wilderness outside town, you either carry a weapon capable of stopping a polar bear, or you hire a licensed guide who does. The rule exists not to hunt bears, which is strictly protected, but to save human lives. Rule number 2. Cats were officially banned in Longyearbyen until 1992. Yes, pet cats. Completely prohibited. The reason? Svalbard has colonies of Arctic terns and other nesting seabirds, and domestic cats were causing significant damage to the bird populations. Environmental protection took priority over pet preferences. Even today, if you want to bring a cat, it needs to be chipped, vaccinated, and meet strict requirements. Rule number 3. And this one connects back to our main theme: there is no traditional functioning cemetery. The existing graveyard is preserved as a historic site, but it's essentially full, and it's not accepting new residents. Rule number 4. Environmental protection laws here are among the strictest on Earth. More than 65% of Svalbard's landmass is protected national park. Development is tightly controlled. You can't just build here. You can't just drive off-road. The ecosystem comes first. Longyearbyen is, in many ways, one of the most regulated communities on Earth. And yet, it's also one of the most free in other respects. No military, no visa requirements for virtually any nationality. A genuine frontier town with its own unique code. And then there's the part that doesn't make headlines. The part that makes people who've lived here talk about it with a kind of reverence for the rest of their lives. The beauty. When the northern lights paint the sky in green and violet and white, and there's no light pollution, no noise, just you and a billion stars and a phenomenon that humans have stared at and awe for thousands of years. There's nowhere on Earth quite like Longyearbyen. The glaciers here are ancient, rivers of ice that have existed for tens of thousands of years. They crack and shift. They calve into fjords with sounds like thunder. They're also retreating, a visible, measurable consequence of climate change that scientists here document with growing urgency. But the isolation, that's something that takes adjustment. And not everyone makes it. 4 months of darkness affects the human mind in ways that science is still fully unpacking. Seasonal affective disorder is common. The absence of sunlight disrupts sleep cycles, mood, and energy in profound ways. Some people find it meditative, others find it devastating. The residents of Longyearbyen have developed their own rituals to cope. There's a tradition of wearing bright, colorful clothing during the darkest months, a deliberate act of visual joy in a monochrome landscape. Community events become lifelines. The local pub becomes a gathering place of genuine importance. And when the sun finally returns, when polar day begins and sunlight floods back after months of absence, the whole town comes out. It's called Solfastuka, the Sun Festival Week, and it's celebrated with genuine emotion. There is a resilience in these people that is difficult to describe but impossible to miss. They chose this. They stay. And most of them, despite everything, would not trade it. Okay, full transparency. Let's address the headline, because I believe in being straight with you. Death is not technically illegal in Longyearbyen. You will not be arrested for dying. No one is going to handcuff a corpse. What is prohibited, officially and firmly, is burial. You cannot be buried here. The permafrost ban on interment is real, it is enforced, and it has been in place for decades. So why does the phrase "death is illegal" persist? Because it captures something emotionally true about the place, even if it's technically imprecise. In Longyearbyen, you cannot end your journey here in the way most humans throughout history have ended theirs, committed to the earth, in the place you called home. You cannot become part of this landscape in death, even after spending your life becoming part of it in every other way. The rule is practical. It's scientific. It's arguably even necessary, especially as climate scientists warn about the risks of thawing permafrost releasing ancient pathogens. But it carries a weight, an emotional resonance, that goes beyond the practical. Because what does home mean if you can't be buried there? That's not a legal question. It's a philosophical one. And Longyearbyen forces you to sit with it. So here is where we land. Longyearbyen is a town that sits at the very edge of the habitable world. It preserves seeds for the future of humanity inside a frozen mountain. It hosts scientists trying to understand the most urgent crisis of our age, climate change. It welcomes people from over 50 nationalities who come looking for something they can't quite name. And it does all of this in a place where the ground is so cold, so perfectly preserving, that a virus from 1918 can survive for decades beneath your feet. This is a place that holds life tightly, protects it fiercely, and refuses to let even death leave a permanent mark. In Longyearbyen, life continues. The community laughs, works, raises children, watches bears walk past in the snow. And when the end comes, when it must come, death must move south, leaving this place exactly as it found it, frozen, ancient, and impossibly alive.
Would you live in a town where death isn't allowed? Drop your answer in the comments below. And if you found this video interesting, share it with someone who loves strange, fascinating places, because Longyearbyen deserves to be known. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.